Hey, what's up? I want to talk to you about something really important today, but first I want to ask you a question. When you hear less is more, what is the first thing that comes to your mind? What's the first thing that you think about when you hear less is more? Because honestly, when I say less equals more, people tend to roll their eyes. They then tend to assume that less equals doing nothing, that it's some lazy man's excuse for slacking off or cutting corners or checking out or just hoping for the best. And honestly, this is what most people don't get. Hustle culture, and I'm going to say it very early on in this, hustle culture has been absolutely lying to you, okay? Grinding 24/7 doesn't mean that you're always going to get ahead. It means that you're busy, and busy is not the same as productive. I want you to write that down and burn that into the top of your forehead. Busy is not the same as productive. There is a monumental difference between the two. And I think that the idea that success comes from like white knuckling or brute force, i.e., more hours, more stress, more sacrifice, in my opinion, is the most outdated, ineffective, and straight up, honestly destructive thing that anybody could ever buy into. Okay? And I think, honestly, when we dig deeper into that, kind of the perspective shift that I want to give you is if that mindset actually worked, explain this to me. So, if that mindset of brute force, white knuckle, more work, more stress, more sacrifice, if all of that system worked, why are so many people exhausted? Why are so many people overwhelmed? And why are so many people still not getting the results that they want, even when they're white knuckling, brute force, more work type approach? If that mindset actually worked, why do so many high performers at the top of their game work less, not more? And if that was true, why is it that so many people who finally step back from the chaos see better results? And today, that's what I want to break down for you, because I want to take a deep dive into the cycle of doing more, but still not getting what you want. And if you're caught in that, right, I want to break down exactly why you're caught in that and how to shift out of it. But I want to tell you about about my client and his story. And my client's name is Sean. When Sean came to me, he was exactly where many, many, many high performers find themselves: burnt out, overwhelmed, trapped in belief that success required suffering. Genuinely. He was saying yes to everything and everyone. He was spreading himself thin so that there was no real focus, and every new thing was a point of focus. And he was constantly on, constantly working, and then also constantly feeling guilty when he wasn't working or when he was with his family. So when he was with his family, he was thinking about work and feeling guilty. When he was with work, he was thinking about his family and feeling guilty. And stuck in that process of trying to juggle work and family, and honestly not winning at both. And probably if I dig deeper than that, probably felt that he was failing at both. And his days were filled with calls, emails, admin, tasks that didn't actually move the needle, but made him feel productive. And that's really important, right? So one of the things that Sean really believed was that he believed that to be successful, he had to do more. More hours, more meeting, more effort, i.e. more hustle. But honestly, what we were understanding and what we were getting into the meat and gravy of is it was costing him. His energy, his time with his family, his ability to be able to actually enjoy what he was building. And if we fast forward to today, Sean just hit his biggest quarter ever in work. But the best part of all of this is he hit it by doing less. Now, I want to reframe the less, because he didn't do less work. He worked better, right? And we designed this, okay? So how we designed it, what we actually did, we got strategic, right? He didn't just work less, okay? We wanted to shift him from being busy to being effective, okay? And alignment comes into play here. Capacity comes into play and flow comes into play, okay? And that's what it means when we look at people's mental performance. Capacity, alignment, and flow. And how their relationship is to work in themselves and how that is impacting where they are right now. So what we did was, the very first thing is we stopped, I suppose, mistaking activity for achievement. And what that meant is we looked at where he was being busy but not effective. And I think he was caught in the same trap that most people will be caught in, that if I was just doing something, I know I'm making progress. That's not always the case. Progress isn't about how much you do. It's about how much of what you do. And that actually being what actually matters is important. Right? So what we did together was we cut out all necessary, unnecessary tasks, right? We looked at where he was having meetings that were pointless and how he restructured them or lean on his team. and we eliminated him taking calls that I suppose weren't moving the needle or creating impact. And he wasn't not taking them, he was referring them on to people, right? So he was still helping and still making an impact. What Sean did next was he then became ruthless with his time and his energy, right? He was spending hours every week on calls that led to nowhere, conversations that drained him, and tasks that probably should have been delegated. Whereas now he says no to what doesn't serve him. He delegates anything that isn't his highest priority, and he protects his focus and his energy. Now, one of the things he said on our most recent call was that he had a never-ending to-do list that always had stuff on, and he never completed it, and it kept this cycle going of, well, I need to do more because I haven't checked it off my list yet. And then when we had the call, he basically showed me the notepad, and there was like 3 or 4 things on it. And while it kind of was like, oh, I'm only doing 3 or 4 things, what he said next was the most important bit. They are the things that actually move the needle. They are the things that when I invest my time and energy into, they are the things that yield results. And they are where I'm most productive. Monumental, right? Because this is what I mean by working less. It's less about like the less time that you spend or the less work that you do, and how you are working and what you are working on, right? And that is the most important thing. Because the result of all of that is he went from being busy and became effective. And that's productivity. But that's also high performance. The third thing that we did, and the deeper thing that we did, was we rewired his beliefs around success and around business and around being always on, right? And never letting anybody down. Sean felt guilty when he wasn't working. And when he was working, he felt guilty because he was working. And this is one of the biggest traps that I think most high performers will fall into. And it's the belief that if you're not constantly working, you're failing. If I'm not moving forwards, I'm going backwards. Most high performers that I know will have this black or white thinking when it comes to success. I'm either always on or I'm always off. And if I'm always off, I'm going backwards. And if I'm going backwards, I'm failing. And it becomes this repetition where it keeps us in the hustle. It keeps us in the grind. And this is the lie I believe most people are sold. The thing that I want you to know and to hold and to really soak into your bones is that success isn't about running yourself into the ground. And if that's your version of success, you're scaling backwards, in my opinion, because it's not sustainable. And sure, all of us need periods where we have focus and we have to give more energy and give more time to things. But if that's a consistent part of your every day and your every week, you're not actually getting things done. You're doing things for the sake of doing things. So what we want to look at and what we did together was we did some deeper subconscious work. And we rewired the stories that he was telling himself. Like, he stopped trying to, I suppose, tying his self-worth to how busy he was. He understood now what was happening beneath it, right? And fulfill that need himself. He was able to stop feeling guilty for taking his time back because he started to see it as the greatest asset to what he wanted to do next. And when it came to ease, he started to realize that ease wasn't the enemy, chaos was. So the result of all that and the impact of all that, right, is yes, he had his biggest quarter to date. He had more revenue while working fewer hours. He had more time with his family, less stress, more clarity, better energy, sharper focus, and more enjoyment. And the question that he said to me, he came on the call recently, and he said, should it feel this easy? Yes, it should. It should feel that easy, because that's what high performance looks like and feels like. Not burnout disguised as ambition, not sacrificing your life in the sake of moving forward, not filling your day with tasks just to feel productive, but by creating a system where your work actually works with and for you. So yes, it should feel that easy. And the homework that he had was to integrate that, was to know that that was safe, right? Because here's what I want you to take away from this. Hustling harder isn't the solution. Hustling smarter is. Grinding isn't and shouldn't be the goal. Effective execution should be. And being busy is not a flex. Being in control and actually moving the needle and moving forward, that's the real flex. So if you're listening to this and you're stuck in a cycle of more equals better, I want you to ask yourself these 3 questions, and I hold up 4 fingers. 3 questions. The first one is, what is the actual ROI on the effort that I'm putting in? What am I actually getting out of the amount of effort that I'm putting in here? Be honest with yourself. The second question I want you to ask is, where are you working harder instead of smarter? Why are you doing things for the sake of being productive? Or maybe it's, I don't want to let people down, or whatever it is. Why are you doing that instead of actually working smarter? Right? And then the last question is, what would happen if you stripped it all back and focused on what moves the needle? The bit that I want to add to that is, one of the things that when we ask that question that can come up is, if I was to strip it all back and only focus on what moved the needle, it leaves no room for no excuse to not be a success, right? And most people I know, they know exactly what they need to do to move the needle. The question comes down to as to why I'm not actually moving it. And more often than not, and this is the head fuck that I want to leave you with this lovely fine Friday, is more often than not, that's because of a fear of success. Because somewhere in the hustle and the culture, and because of the lie that you've been sold, more success equals more responsibility equals more sacrifice equals more loss equals more pain equals, and the pattern gets repeated. I've had many people, so I asked a client recently, they're in the process of trying to create a 5-day work week, which at the moment they're kind of very honestly working 7. And they'd love their weekends back, and maybe, like, at best case scenario, they'd love to have a day off during the week. And I asked them, if I was to grant the wish right now and just give them those days and everything could stay the same and they would come at no loss, how would they feel? And they said anxious. So the very thing that they were working towards was the very thing that they were avoiding. Why? I asked. And they said, I wouldn't know what to do at the time. I wouldn't know how to fill it, and I'd always feel guilty. Okay. So why are we working towards this then? And they said, because I want it. Okay. So why does it feel unsafe? And that's why success can often be, and the fear of success can often be very, very, like, nitty gritty at the bottom of it. And what we need to look at, because you already know what you need to do in order to strip it all back. Like, I didn't tell Sean what to do. He knew what to do to move the needle. He knew what to focus on to move the needle. I didn't tell him that. He knew that himself. The bit that what we did together to help him understand why he wasn't moving the needle was we uncovered some deeper beliefs around what it meant. And because of that, we were able to see the bigger picture of setting up a system to make sure that didn't happen. And that's the magic. Because the very thing that you're working towards might also be the very thing that you're avoiding. And that can be the biggest headfuck of all. And that's the bit that you need to ask yourself some serious questions on. So what would happen if you stripped it all back and only focused on moving the needle? What's the biggest fear there? Maybe it's like, I don't believe that I can hold it. I don't believe that you can have success and work less. Whatever is getting in the way, whatever the block is, will consistently be the block. And you'll underperform because you'll hold yourself back. You'll hold yourself back because of the fear that's on the other side of actually moving the needle. So I want to leave you with that. And I know that was a headfuck. But the truth of it all is, when we think and talk about high performance, it isn't and never will be about working yourself to the bone, right? It's about working in a way that actually works for you, right? That gives you back just as much as you're giving it. And I think if you think about Sean's journey, Sean is proof of what's possible, right? And the question that you need to ask yourself right now is, why are you staying in the outdated hustle mindset and approach? And what would it be like to experience what real high performance felt like? And you were a couple of decisions away from that. So if you want to build success without burnout, without guilt, without the chaos, I'd love to talk, right? Because in my opinion, the real flex is winning without losing yourself in the process. And I'd love to help you do that. Have a lovely Friday. I hope I haven't mindfucked you too much.